We won't
So
do more.
We don't promise to remember anything, but we'll try.
All right.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
You're first. You're the
All right,
oldest, you're first.
What's your some of your first memories growing up?
I'll be first, she's thinking.
Okay.
My first ones are living on 26th Street, 606 26th Street, and having the banister around the porch and learning to skate on the front porch and making sure you didn't go to the part where the stairs were and go right down the stairs. And the fact that we had a swing on the other side of the front porch, not the great big side, but the right-hand side. And we always enjoyed
It was
swinging
kind
on
of an
that
L
swing.
shape, but the little part was narrow and the other one was a great big square.
About how old were you at that time?
Well, it was before I was 6 because we moved out in the country when I was 6. We lived in one side, and grandmother and granddad. Actually, we lived with grandmother and granddad one time, didn't we? Then we moved on the other side or something.
Yeah, I think so.
No, 606 26th Street, which they have it blocked off at the bottom now. But that's where,
It's off of Hamilton Road, yeah.
yeah, down by Sarah's Cafe.
Behind
If you go down
Sarah's
that
Cafe.
street, go down there.
Okay.
In fact, we went and toured it, last spring or something?
It was
It's-
March before last when you
Yeah,
came down.
they let us go through it. What's it, a home for
It's a kind of in-between home for
homeless, wasn't it?
homeless veterans now. It's got a name, but I don't remember the name of it. And they got bought it and the house next door, and they use it for that.
There was a huge fig tree in the backyard, and we used to pick the figs, but we also would catch the June bugs and put them on a string, you know, and have this the June bugs.
You don't do that now.
I tried to do that, but their legs kept falling off.
This
I
tree
remember
was so huge, the trunk was about this big around, and the tree went up to where you could get on the top of the house and go through the tree and get on the top of the garage. That's how big the tree
It was
was.
a huge
That's
big
where
tree.
they got their monkey ability.
Yes, Austin.
And so when you were 6, and you were now, what's the difference in age?
2.5.
So you were 8 and a half. And then what brought about this move to the country?
Well, Dad had bought the land and built the house. And once the house got built, not totally finished, but
They
enough,
say he probably built the house. We moved in on the subfloor, no bathroom. We had a
our house.
privy out with a cow fence. We lived on that subfloor for a number of years while Daddy could afford to put a floor in it.
Yeah, I can remember going out there when there wasn't even the subflooring, and so you've got about this much space, and being little, we would step from one to the other, trying not to fall through between them. You know, it was fun,
And
all that land out there.
how much younger than y'all was Charles?
He's 3 years.
Is it 3? Yeah, 3.
3 years younger than Vera.
Almost. Because his birthday season the 19th of June and mine's the 10th of July, so it's just that much short of 3
So he was
years.
about 3 when you moved out.
Guess so.
I don't know. I remember one time living over there on 13th Street. And I've tried for a number of times to decide.
Street or Avenue?
Avenue.
Yeah.
Because I've tried for a number of times to decide which one of those houses it was behind Louis Jones there on 13th Avenue over towards where I work. But I remember that we lived in one of those houses for a while, and Charles was real small, and Mother got a great big cardboard box and put pillows in it and set Charles out in the sunshine. So he had to have been real small, not big enough to crawl in that box.
Must not have playpens back then, so the shoe improvised and made her own.
I guess one of my earliest memories, and I don't remember where we were living at the time, but I remember we had a pot-bellied stove, and I started to throw, I must have been about 2, and I started to throw a piece of paper in it, and my hand slipped, hit that hot stove.
Ooh,
And boy, that was something.
I remember that.
Well, if I was 2, you wouldn't remember
Okay, I didn't realize you said 2. No, I would not remember
He
that.
that sat on the red hot stove shall rise quickly.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Tell us about this cow story.
This what?
About
Oh,
milking
that's
the cows.
later on.
That's later on.
Yeah.
Mom's
Much
talking
later.
about 2 years old. I remember you telling me that you started kindergarten at 2.
I did.
At 2?
Really?
That got to the part about the kindergarten, so we'll
What
start there.
else is on there?
No.
What? Everything else is on there.
Up to
Up to the kindergarten.
what you
when he just played, that was the last.
That's when I,
No, I was talking about the box then that Charles was in.
no, but I went forward
Oh,
to
okay.
kindergarten. Okay, so tell us about the kindergarten.
Kindergarten take 2.
Kindergarten take 2. Tell about the kindergarten.
And
Go ahead.
actor don't tell the director what to do.
Okay, we lived very close to Linwood School, and my mother knew the lady that taught the kindergarten. And there was no rules about your age, so the kindergarten teacher got my mother to let me start coming to kindergarten.
Okay, go ahead.
And so I started when I was still 2 years old. And then we moved several different places, so I went to kindergarten at several other schools. I went to kindergarten at East Highland, I went to kindergarten at Wave the Terrace.
That's the one I went to. It's Wave
I
the
went to
Terrace.
kindergarten there at Linwood, anyway, it was one of the schools.
I've heard of child prodigies, but at 2
Yeah.
years old, what was it doing kindergarten?
Well, back then
Play.
they more or less played. They didn't learn
More
stuff.
of a
like-
nursery school.
Yeah.
Kind of like
Yeah.
high school now.
They didn't teach
Kinda like Head
ABCs or
Start.
anything like they do now.
Well, it must have been Wave the Terrace that I went to that I had the dress with the buttons that stood out and nearly killed me every time I wore it stupid enough to wear it to school and then have to take a nap.
But didn't you tell me by the time you were 2 and a half or something you could read or knew your ABC? Okay. Do you remember her going to school? Well, that's too young.
I mean, I know I'm smart, but I wasn't that smart.
2.5, she wasn't.
Okay, so tell us about the move out to the country.
I don't know.
Well, we moved to
It's just that this thing thinks it's shutting down if it's not rolling. Go ahead.
we were going to Wave the Terrace School, and when I was in, they had 3 A's and 3 B's. So when I was I went to the first half of the 3rd grade, and then when I got to the second half of the 3rd grade, we moved to the country. So out there they didn't have A's and B's. It was a different school system at the time.
The county, you know?
Now it's all one system, but then we had the city schools and the county schools. The county schools didn't have A and B classes, they just had 1 full year. So when we moved out there, my mother took me to school, and they said, well, she can skip a half a grade, she can, go up to the 4th grade, or she can stay out of school that half a year, or she can stay back in the 3rd grade. Well, my mother, being a very cautious person, she didn't want me to skip anything. She was afraid I'd miss something. So I repeated the 3B.
Oh, I always thought you skipped the 3rd
No,
grade.
Mother wouldn't let me skip that half a
Don't
grade.
show how much sense I've got.
And so then I went on from there and graduated from Bellwood School as a valedictorian. At that time, they had a junior high over at Rosemont School, which is just an elementary school now, and they had 2 grades there, 8th and 9th grade. At that time, elementary went through 7th, now it just goes through 6th. So I went to the 7th grade at Bellwood School. I went out to Rosemont School and went 8th and 9th grade. I won the scholarship medal out there for my grade in the junior high for having the best grades. And I let some boy I thought I was crazy about wear it, and he lost it.
Isn't that the way?
But
Wasn't me.
when you got to the 10th and 11th grades, the county would pay the city for the county students to go there.
Because they had no county high
Because
school.
they didn't have a county high school. So I went on to Jordan for the 10th and 11th grades. And at that time, we only had 11 grades. We didn't have 12 grades. So I graduated from Jordan High School. The first weekend in June, and married your daddy the 24th of that same month.
She graduated on the 4th and she got married on the 24th.
Best thing that ever happened to her.
And what
Okay,
about
Vera,
your
how
high
about your, how
school?
about your,
Well, I want to go back to the 3rd grade.
Okay.
Wasn't it the 3rd grade that the teacher hit you over the head and Dad flipped?
I don't know that.
That's gonna get you out of
I mean, you know,
Dad hit
hitting,
her on the head with a teacher.
hitting on the hand's one thing, but this teacher had a habit of hitting kids
I don't
with a
remember
ruler
that.
on the head.
So what?
You don't
so
remember
what
that?
did
My
they
dad
do?
went over there and gave her the word. She didn't ever do it again.
But if we did something wrong,
Yeah, we
he
got it at home, but
Yeah.
you don't hit a kid on the head real hard with a ruler. I mean, let's face it, if you got any sense at all. So,
I remember when I was in the 3rd grade, I had to go to the bathroom and the teacher wouldn't let me go. And at that time, I had a weak bladder and I had to go right often. And my mother wrote the teacher a note and told her that I needed, if I said I had to go, I needed to go and to let me go, and she wouldn't let me go. So I just used my seat.
And then what happened?
from then on, she let her go.
That was in the 3rd grade.
I think so. I'm not sure. It was one of those young grades at Bellwood School.
You was flatter when your bladder was flatter, wasn't it?
So what was the change that took place in your life, moving from the city life to the country life?
The changes? Well, we were stuck way out in the country.
There weren't many people around either.
Wasn't many people around, and we didn't have much transportation.
No, it was a mile from our house to the highway. It was a dirt road too at the time,
And which highway was that?
Haakenson Road.
So
They had to shut corn and
Oh,
Well, one thing was when we went to Bellwood School, we had to walk, of course. And there was this one place where you crossed the creek, and somebody had cut off of a tree about so high, and we thought it was great to get up on that and jump across the creek. But you didn't always make it. Sometimes you fell back in the creek. But along that creek in the spring, there were just gorgeous flowers. You know, just walk on the creek, and also we would sometimes walk up and walk down the railroad track. You know, up on the rails.
I remember doing that.
And let's see, I think we left that and went out to double churches when I was in the 6th grade. 6th
Yeah,
and
I
7th,
never
I
had
went
to
to
go to
double
double
churches in the
churches.
6th and 7th grade. And I don't know if you guys ever played Pop the Whip or not. But we did, and I remember one time I was on the end and the kid turned me loose. And there were big rocks all along that marked the right, and I got skinned all down one side where on that. And so we were there for those 2 years, and then I went to Bellwood for, I guess, 8th and 9th, and then to Jordan for 10th and 11th, because it was still just 11 grades. So I was actually 16 when I graduated from high school.
You graduated right in the middle of World War II, didn't you? What
46.
I was 70 when I graduated because I had repeated that half a grade.
And by then, the county had a high school. But Mother wanted me to still go to Jordan because of their commercial department, and the other school just getting started. She didn't know, and they were busing kids way out there near Fort Benning. So they paid $50 a year instead of the other way around, and they paid $50 to the city for me to go to the city high school.
So the county high school was Baker then?
Yeah, it just started.
And Charles went to school there.
And then Charles went there and was a football
Player.
Why did he want to go there?
Well,
Didn't
that's
have
where he
any
was supposed to
choice.
go.
So
See, Vera was supposed to go there, but she was so close to finishing, and they wanted her to go
even
finish.
though it was closer to go to Jordan,
They bust all the
They
kids.
bust them all the way to
they
the
bust
other
all
end
the
of-
kids.
other end.
Because
the
Jordan
county.
was a city school,
Yeah.
Baker was a county school.
we still doing that. Don't knock it. That's where I make my living.
he manages the bus shop. You guys haven't asked anything.
Well, you were about to ask
I'm-
about
yeah.
growing up during the war. What?
Yeah.
I think I
Well-
remember you told me a little bit about how you had coupons for shoes
Yeah,
and whatnot.
during the war we had coupons, and they calculated your gas coupons from where you lived to how much it cost you, you know, how far it was to work, and that's the kind of gas coupons you got to get you to work. They had coupons for shoes, for canned goods.
For sugar and canned fruit. They had different coupons.
You always had that. And when I was 13, I went to work in the meat department at the A&P, and the only reason I got to work at 13 was because Aunt Louise worked there. And Mr. Osteen was the manager in the meat
I
department.
thought you worked at Osteen's grocery.
I did after that, but he worked for the A&P then, and then when he got his own little grocery store, then I left A&P and went to work for him. And on Friday nights, they would come down and get me when I got off from work, and we would always go up to the theater. What was that theater up there?
The
It was
Royal
Royal
Theater
Theater.
to see the Green Hornet.
Yeah, those serials. We always, and the movies were always good movies then, so we always went to the movie on Friday night.
That was our treat. We were
Yeah.
full. Friday night movie was our treat.
Yeah. And,
You can't afford to go to the
and during that time when you couldn't do the shoes, there was this little colored lady that came in, and she always waited for me to wait on her. And when she didn't use her shoe coupon, she gave them to me because she didn't use all of hers, so we had that extra. And that was the time when they went from mayonnaise to Miracle Whip. During the war, they started making Miracle Whip.
This
Because
is less
mayonnaise
expensive.
was, yeah, I guess whatever. It was just harder to get.
I know it.
You know. Oh, is that what it is? But they did that
Was.
during the war. And
Austin and I married about that time, and to buy any kind of appliance, you had to have what did they call it? You had to have a paper to get it. What was it? Anyway, you had to have kind of a certificate from the government before you could even buy an appliance. And
I didn't know that.
Kind of like over in the Soviet Union.
Yeah,
we had-
papers for the blender.
we had to buy a little apartment-sized stove, just a little bit of square apartment-sized stove, and we had to buy a gas heater, and we had to get permission from the government to buy them.
Was that hard to get, or?
Yeah, during the war, they quit making everything that they could quit making and made everybody make stuff for the war, see. And so they were scarce. And so you had to prove that you needed it. You couldn't just go out and buy a new stove because you decided you didn't like your old one.
And before the war, what about, now, part of your growing up was during the Depression, right? Do you remember much about that?
I don't remember a whole lot. I just remember that money was very, very tight. We had to stretch everything that we had to make it do. I remember when Mother we would have to make our lunch and take it to school.
Okay.
We would, Mother would buy a can of pineapple, and instead of having one slice of pineapple for our sandwich, we would have to cut it this way and make thin slices and make 2 sandwiches out of 1 slice of pineapple.
See, I don't remember that.
So when I eat a pineapple sandwich now, I put 2 whole
Me too.
slices on it.
I did too, even though I don't remember that. I break them in 2 and kind of fix them so they intertwine.
And after Austin and I married, Mother had a cow, but after Austin and I married, we couldn't afford milk. So that's the reason I'm a milkaholic now.
But see, I don't understand that because I don't understand why they didn't say something. Because we had milk, we had the cow and everything. In fact, I learned to milk the cow. And then we had traveling missionaries, and one of them, Elder Toombs, I believe was his name, taught me how to milk with both hands, and I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. Ruby never learned to milk the cow, and I thought, well, that's pretty stupid, but you know something? She was darn smart, because then she never had to milk the cow.
She had to churn though.
I had to churn.
Oh, I had to churn too.
Austin had to come churn for me, so I could go out on a date with him.
She fixed it so I get that just about time. I got to go dress, you do this.
And I wanted the churn, but I found out Charles has the churn.
Do you have a favorite radio show? I know you used to listen to The Shadow.
Oh yeah, the
Oh, yeah.
shadow knows.
The
What evil,
intersanctum.
what evil lurks in the hearts of men, the shadow knows. And I would go down to use that Rhodes house, which was, I don't know how far.
It was just across the road
3
there.
No, when she lived down at that other place. Up there towards where Mrs. Starling's beauty shop was. They lived up on that road one time.
Oh.
And I'd ride my bicycle up there, and then it would be dark going home. And on the way, at this house where they put in a little grocery store next to it later, I don't know what they did.
Parish.
They had dogs that would come out, and so here I am pedaling after dark, scared to death because of the shadow. And but hey, we survived, and we played in the creek, and we weren't supposed to, because they slaughtered cattle over in Bradley's, but we still played in the creek, and sometimes there were snakes you saw in the
Are you
creek.
saying
And
there was water pollution back
we
then?
dammed it up and went swimming, and then on down the creek there was this part that had a lot of rocks. Do you remember all those big rocks?
Yeah, but when we dammed it up, Bradley would come along and tear it down because they said they wasn't getting enough water for their cows. We'd dam it up and go swimming.
And I remember one day we were not supposed to go swimming, so we tried to do it so the stuff would get dry before they got home from work, you know. And there was this one day, Musette and I were there, and we went down on this area where the rocks were, and slipped and fell in the water.
Was that on
And so
purpose?
she got in trouble for that.
Oh, so then,
Yeah, she got in trouble for that because we weren't supposed to be there.
And what was the name of that? It was Russian Branch? Was that the name of that little creek right there?
Roaring.
I don't know if it even
Roaring
had.
Branch.
no,
I didn't know it had a
I
name.
didn't either.
It was
Now,
just a
Roaring
creek,
Branch is the one across the road you used to play in, isn't it? Across
and
that
half
road.
of it belongs to us, right? Still,
That's Roaring Branch.
What?
half of that creek. Did it belong to us?
I don't really know
I
what
think
the
it
line
did. I
is.
think half that creek belongs to us.
We had more water moccasins come down the creek. And, oh, another thing I hated, my daddy grew corn. And have you ever heard of people talking about pulling fodder? We had to go down there when the corn got dry and pull those old leaves down, and it would sting you to death. And we'd have to pull those down
And they bound them and put them up
and pound them up.
in the top of the garage to have to feed the cow.
Now, besides the cow, y'all have other livestock?
Oh yeah, we had chicken. We did.
We didn't have no
chickens.
pigs or anything, though.
No, but we had chickens.
We had
I
some
remember
chickens.
the
Yeah,
chickens
my mother.
and the jars and the purple tablets that went in, and you'd fill it up, and then you'd quickly turn it over so you didn't lose your water. You know, there was a little part at the bottom
We
that
had
they.
chickens. When my mother wanted to kill a chicken, she'd take him, tie him to the clothesline by his feet and pull his head down and take a butcher knife and whack his head off, and he'd just flip blood everywhere. And when he quit flipping blood, she'd go get him and clean him.
And we had a big black wash pot that they did the laundry in out. And I remember when Grandmother Chambliss would come, and if we were going to be going off to school and she was going to do washing or anything, we had to go out there and draw water out of the well for her. And we never thought about how much work she was doing. She was a little bitty thing. We never thought about that. We just hated to pull that water out of that well before we went off to school. But we had really good water out of that well. And then there was the time Ruby was throwing the ball up on the roof of the little porch at the back,
porch.
and she backed up into a pile of hot ashes.
Barefooted. I had
How long were
blisters
you
on my
up on
feet
that?
that big.
How long were you up because of that?
And they told me, they said, I ran, jumped in a, and now they tell you that's the best thing you can do.
Yeah.
But I had blisters that big anyway, between my toes and all around.
And
I was backing up, say, catching the ball, and I just backed right into that pile of hot ashes with my spouting shoes on.
And we had a garden out in the back of the house besides all the other land that we farmed. And you could see the rain coming, we'd be out there working, so we'd wait till we got to the end of the row, and then we'd make a mad dash for the porch to beat the rain to the porch. But we do a lot of stuff.
Pretty good sized garden.
Oh yeah, we canned a lot of food. In fact, I remember, I think it was when I was 13, I wanted to go off to 4-H camp. And before I went off to 4-H camp, I canned all the stuff.
We had a big strawberry patch, and we'd have to go turn those vines over too. And also, potato patch, we had to turn the vine. This time the strawberries, we had to push out the vine so we could find the strawberries and pick them.
And we used to pick wild blackberries, and there were lots of huge black.
Still are out there.
Yeah, we used to have blackberry pie a lot.
And isn't there a picture somewhere where Daddy hung a snake up on the fence that he killed there on the property? I think there is.
I don't know, we got a picture of one that was killed in our backyard after we moved across the street
Well, I
there.
think there's one somewhere, except Charles doesn't know where the photos are. He claims he didn't get them.
Well, who did then?
He did, but they don't know what happened to them.
Well, Mom,
So.
I have no, maybe I have a question for Aunt Ruby.
Oh my goodness.
About, yeah, maybe. Well, Mom, when Bonnie and I used to fight a lot, Mom would always say, now my sister and I, we shared a room and we didn't fight like that. Did you guys get along pretty well?
We got along pretty good except for one thing. If Vera and Charles ever got to fighting, I'd try to be the mediator. Then they'd both jump on me. But outside of that, we got along real well.
But Charles was a brat, and I remember when we would come home from school, and he would be such a brat. We'd lock him out the back door, and he would run around to the front, so we'd have to run around and lock the front door to keep him from getting in. And then there was the time that, were you the one that pushed the bench and the, he was doing something, right? What did you?
I don't know what he was doing.
And she shoved the bench, and it knocked a hole in the breakfast nook wall. And then there was one time he threw, what was it, softball, baseball, and you ducked in the bedroom and it broke the window. Dad says, "What'd you duck for?"
You get hit.
And we had we got a, what do you call it? The heater that stands out. Remember in the back bedroom we used to have this big heater?
Mhm.
And
Just
I started wearing braces when I was
circulating
13. Mother went to work to put braces on my teeth. And I was almost through. I wore those things for 3 years, and I was almost through, and one of them had come out at school. And I'd wrapped it in a Kleenex, and put it in my purse. And when I got home from school and I was cleaning out my purse, I pulled all this stuff, and the minute it went into the heater, I realized my retainer was in there. And needless to say, that was the end of the retainer. It was so near the end that the dentist didn't put another one on.
See how hard Vera slept. We slept on a bed together in that room that was pushed right
Oh,
up,
yeah, that's right.
right up against the window. I mean,
You know, the one.
we were in front of the window, just pushed the head of it. Well, Austin and I went out one night. We came home, and Mother and Daddy didn't wait up for us. They went to bed.
Why don't you leave me out of this?
So I went up there to Vera's window, and I beat on that one, and I beat on that one, and I beat on that one. And you know, she wouldn't even get up and let me in.
I never did. She didn't wake me up, so they always said they could take the roof off the house as long as it didn't touch my bed.
That's right.
Forget it.
So we had to go around and climb in the little window of the table in this little breakfast nook.
Oh, is that how you got in? I don't remember. And I remember we had a beautiful Persian cat that somebody in this big fancy house out in Winton Dad had built. The daughter wouldn't keep the cat off the table. The cat would just keep on, and so they gave it to Dad, and it was a beautiful cat.
It was a silver gray Persian.
Tell us about what you remember about great-granddaddy Owens and great-grandmama Owens. When you visit them, or what you remember about them.
Well, Grandmother Owens always had what they call them, fried apple pies. Anyway, on the table in the eating area, and so we always made a beeline for that. And when we would go down there, I would always stand up to eat because I told them I could eat more if I stood up.
And they always lived in that house on Hamilton Road?
No, they didn't always. I remember when they lived over, what's that street? It was across from a fire station. It's just, what?
The tape inside the camera, and it
You're not running the tape. How do you keep it?
I'm running tape on this machine.
Oh,
I'm
I
just
see.
feeding the image to it.
And they lived there with the store in the front, and then they lived there. And Grandmother ran that store, but at that same time, Granddaddy ran a store over, what is it, First Avenue?
Mm-hmm.
He was running a grocery store over there. And
Grandmother Owens always cooked a big dinner. And she had this big round table on Sunday especially. And she'd put all this food on the table. When they get through eating dinner, she'd just take this huge cloth and cover it up. And then anybody that came in during the day would go in there and eat. And nothing ever spoiled. I don't know why.
yeah, you wonder. You really do, but it never did. That's what she always did. So you always do, hey, go to the kitchen and get whatever you want. And
She never got upchucks.
No,
never.
no.
And one thing about Grandmother Owens, though, if there wasn't anything to worry about, she'd find something. She was a worrier of the worst degree. It's so funny.
Yeah, the area down there where Granddaddy had his little store was kind of,
Not the best area in town.
yeah. And since she didn't have anything else to worry about, she'd go down there and get to know those people and worry about all their problems. And they had plenty of them down there.
Oh, yeah. People with no money and everything. And they had worked in the mill. All of the relatives, before had worked in the mill, cotton mills.
Cotton.
That's how they,
Yeah, Grandmother.
so they didn't have a whole lot of,
All of them.
education because
worked
they
in there too.
worked in the
He
mill.
said something about the war. Vera remembers more about the war than I do because I had already married, and she and a lady that I used to work with and other people, they used to go down to the USO building where they used to entertain the soldiers as they came in. And she can tell you a lot more about the war than I can about that.
Yeah, I joined the Girls Service Organization down at the Armed Services YMCA, which probably was about what street? Just off of Main Street, Broad Street. And we had dances down there every Tuesday night. And then on Thursday night, they took us out to Fort Benning to the service club to dance with the GIs. And then on Saturday night, we always had a dance down there. And got to dance with some really neat people who knew how to dance. One time we had this guy there that had been a teacher for Arthur Murray, so you can imagine how much fun it was to dance with him. Then there was one from, I think it was from Ohio, that could do a polka like you would not believe, and it was really lots of fun. And
Tell about how your family came to join the church. Did you talk about that earlier?
you go tell
Was it Naoma, or was she?
No.
I mean,
She came later.
My daddy was a Woodman of the World.
What's that?
Well, it's
Was an
Sound like the Elks
organization, kind of like the
still
Masons.
exists.
They still
The
have
fraternal
it.
organization.
Yeah, and he also was a 32-degree Mason too later, but he was a Woodman of the World, and so was the man in Phoenix City named Kurt Wade, and so my daddy met him through the Woodmans, and we used to go to the Woodman dances. I wasn't even really big enough to dance, but he would take me down there, and they did the old-fashioned square dances, you know, where they have the collars and the dip and dive and go around and change partners and all that. And so through Kurt Wade, we got to know his family, and he was, Kurt was Betty Wade's husband, which was Ruth and Wade, and Donna, no, not Donna, Ruth and her name was
Her name was Betty Wade.
Lois.
Lois Wade.
Was the daughter.
Anyway, so we got to know them real well, and they were members of the church, and so my mother got interested, and so we started going to the church, and
'Cause we had gone to the Rose Hill Methodist Church.
yeah, before that we went to
We
Rose Hill
could walk to
Methodist
it from
Church.
where we lived on 26th Street.
Yeah, when we were young, we went to Sunday school at Rose Hill Methodist Church, and after my mother met the Wades, we started going to church up there, and we went for a long time before we were baptized. They called us dryland Mormons because we weren't baptized. But then we got baptized, and it was just Mother and us. Daddy didn't join.
Mother got baptized first, didn't she? And then us
Yeah,
a
Mother
couple
was
of years
baptized.
later, and
then-
after that, them a couple of years.
Yeah, and then when Naoma came into it, well, she came down there as a missionary.
We were already members, but Dad and Charles weren't.
Yeah, and so after Naoma came
She
down,
became part of the family.
she came like part of the family, and she taught my daddy. And real gung-ho, you know.
How much of that did you miss from?
Just start with Naomi again.
Okay. Since my daddy wasn't a member,
They had
even,
cottage meetings at our house.
even though we
They told
were,
us.
when Naoma came down as a missionary, she and her companion started teaching my daddy. And my mother and Naoma got to be the very best of friends.
Daddy too.
And Daddy also.
In fact, there was one time he got, Naoma needed some shoes, and he got some shoes somewhere without a coupon.
For Naoma.
Yeah.
And so through them teaching him, he did join the church. But like I say, he never got that real gung-ho. It's real hard for him to accept tithing.
Yeah, but the reason for that was because we were such a poor little branch. And anything they wanted, that was one thing, but to send it to Salt Lake, he could not see as badly as we needed. He even offered to build them a scout house in the back, but they turned it down.
Yeah, he
I
would
guess
help
the
the
church
Lord, but he wouldn't pay
would-
tithing to be sent off.
But then you've heard the story of the tithing.
Yeah, tell it again. I don't remember
Okay,
exactly.
in fact, I have a little piece of paper.
I was
Mother-
going to ask you about that on this
Mother
trip.
did not keep a diary. I wish to heaven she had, but she had this little diary thing, and it periodically she just put, and so in it, he died in November. It was in the first, I think, the week of January, and she said that my dad came to her and he told her exactly how much money to pay tithing for him.
After he died.
After he died in November, this was in January.
Did he come
And I
stand
got
at the
this
foot
little
of her
piece of
bed or
paper.
something?
No, that was when they did his endowments. I don't know where he stood when he did this, but he talked to her this time and told her. And she didn't pay it there when she went to Utah. And then I was going one time, and she gave me money to take. She paid it in, I think, 3 installments because she, And so I took some out to church headquarters and paid it. She didn't pay it, through the local thing. I guess she didn't want people to know what was going on and everything. And So he told exactly, I mean, right down to the penny, how much tithing to pay for him. Yeah, and then, once later, after that, he came and stood at the foot of her bed and said nothing. And so then when she talked to Naomi and Wendell, she found out that was the night Wendell did his endowments. So he, came to her twice. But see, it didn't take long to find out what it was really all about from tithing. The latter part of November to the first week of January.
Learn fast
So you
in the
learn
spirit
fast
world.
in the spirit world, And, but I always thought the basic, for the beginning, was from missionaries that had left a Book of Mormon at Mother's parents. And they never went to join the church, but Mother had come in contact with the Book of Mormon that way.
She may have, I don't know, but I know.
I do know there was this other involved too.
It was
but
through
she did
them.
have-
They were associated
Yeah.
with them, and
And Carl Barrington C.C. Barrington was the French president at the time, and he called her the Dryland Mormon because she took part in everything.
well, they even
Before
called
she
us
ever got-
that because we
ever
waited a
got-
couple more years to,
Even got before she got baptized.
How long was this that she was attending before she?
I don't know, but it must have been a long time.
What was the feelings toward the church in Columbus at that time?
I don't know of any animosity, do you? If there was any, we were kids, we didn't know anything about it.
Live and let live mostly. We didn't have a whole lot of trouble at that
I mean,
time in Columbus.
Yeah. I know I had a teacher in the 6th grade that was covering the Exodus West, and she made some statements, I don't know what they were, but they were not true, and I called her on it. And so she was going to tell them more the next day. And so then I, afterwards told her this is not true and so forth, so she never did say anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And then one time when I was in high school, when I was a senior, the last 6 weeks I did not go to class. I worked in the office. And I had this friend that was in this history class, and this one brought up something about the Mormons. And this friend of mine says, "That's not true. I know somebody who is one, and that is not so," whatever it was. So.
Well, tell us about Granddaddy Owens and
Well, I don't
really
know a lot
as
to
their
tell about
personality
Granddaddy.
and what they were like.
I really don't remember what Granddaddy Owens was like. Do you?
Well, when I say Granddaddy Owens now, I'm talking about Jack.
Oh,
Our
okay.
daddy.
Yeah.
He was an outdoors type person, always involved in.
Yeah, he went hunting.
Yeah.
He brought
Squirrels
squirrels
and
and rabbit
rabbits
home,
and-
and that we had to eat that a lot because on the meat we had.
And went frog gigging.
And,
Down in
he
Florida.
worked very hard. He was a construction worker.
Perfectionist.
Perfectionist. No
Isn't
matter
it the post
office downtown in Columbus.
and you worked
Now-
for?
You were saying what were some of the things that Granddaddy worked on as far as building projects?
He worked on the post office that we still use in Columbus.
And he built the house that I was talking about that they gave us the Persian cat. It was a big 2-story with a circular staircase and a chandelier. Where was it?
Robert knows
That's
that
the one on
house.
Hilton
That's the Rock
Avenue.
House on
Yeah.
Hilton Avenue.
He built that. We got to go in and see it. And I remember one Sunday dinner, the phone rang. It was for Daddy, and he went to the phone and he said, "Yes, ma'am," 5 times. And that was all there was to it. And there was some woman out in Winton who would not let anybody else touch anything she did to her house, and so she was calling him about some things that she wanted done to her house. And it was, "Yes, ma'am," 5 times.
If he put a door up, it wasn't exactly straight. You know how some,
Yeah.
it came down, went back up. It had to be perfect.
In fact, he was just before, actually, Jim Woodruff wanted him to go in business with him at one point in time when we were older, before he, not so long, I don't think, before he got killed. And if he liked you and nothing set him off, it was great because he had tons of money and Dad had the expertise. But if any little thing he got on the outs with you, he was the pits.
He's my boss. He was my boss's daddy, the one I'm
Yeah,
working for
I know.
now.
But, and so Dad decided not to, and I did not know it, but Charles said Dad was just before going into business building himself when he got killed, and had he done so, but, because the boom that came on, we'd have probably ended up being filthy rich at some time. In fact, we had our land, and then for the people below us, were their names the Joneses? I don't remember, but anyway, when they decided to sell their land between us and the creek, Daddy bought it because he didn't want anybody else. down there, and then Charles tells about two lots, two people that own houses out. Oh, I don't know exactly where it is. Maybe Warm Springs Road or somewhere out that way. That wanted to sell their houses. Wanted to sell, and Dad could have gotten them, for a real good price, and he talked them out of selling it. And those particular things are commercial property today. But he just told them, you really shouldn't do that. You should hang on to it. And we had down at the crossroads from where we lived. Wasn't Daddy one of those that helped put in that ball diamond, so we had a place to play and put in the home plate? And that was our pastime as kids. If we weren't in the creek where we didn't belong, then we were down there playing ball. And then with those 3 big pine trees, we would gather pine cones and have pine cone battles. And you don't think those things hurt when they hit. And then over in the woods, we had
especially when they're green.
There was, what is it? Honeysuckle vine. And anytime the cow got loose from being staked out, we knew where to go, because she went to that honeysuckle vine. Well, we'd have to move the cow every so often, And,
when Grandmother Chambers came out, she would do that. She'd spend the whole day walking that cow up the hill and letting it eat a while, then move it on to someplace else.
And I remember one time that some man rented, I guess he rented it, I don't guess Dad just let him do it, planted cotton on this one area of land that we had. But after he gathered his cotton, he didn't do a stinking thing with the stalks of it. And guess who had to clear that up before we got money to go to the fair? We had to do it. But when we first moved out there, next door to where Dad built the house, there was just a whole, your whole yard was in bitter weeds. And if you don't think that's something, pulling up those things, you got green, stinky hands. But we had to pull all those bitter weeds up so we could have a decent.
Well, if the cow got in the bitter weeds, you couldn't drink the milk.
You couldn't drink the milk. Because it was awful. Absolutely awful.
What about how your mom and dad got along when you were growing up?
So far as I know, I don't remember them
just average,
fighting or anything. Yeah. We didn't have yelling and all that stuff at our house like a lot of people have.
My daddy could talk rough sometimes.
Yeah,
but we didn't.
Oh yeah, but I mean there was not that. Yeah, and you did what he told you to. And I remember one time that Mother was going to give Charles a whipping, and he ran from her. And when my dad got home, believe me, he never ran from her again. And I remember I got a brand new bike, and wasn't it Charles, I guess it was, Charles or you, one of you, took my bike off, riding it with it brand new, and Christmas, Daddy would go down to the farmer's market and get a crate of, what all fruit did he get? I know he got oranges. Do you remember what else he got?
Oranges and apples and tangerines. That's the only time of the year we ever had the fruit was at Christmas.
And he would get a big stalk of bananas and hang it on the back porch. I remember that.
That's the only time of the year we ever bought fruit.
And we didn't have like I said, we didn't have a big Christmas, but we always got something.
Yeah, I remember one year, I said, all I want is 2 things, and I wanted a slip and a purse, and I must have been 15 by then. And I thought surely they'd wrap it up or something, And I walked in there that morning, and here was the purse and the slip hanging on the tree, and that's exactly what I got. I didn't get no surprise. I didn't get no package or anything.
Well, I don't remember, but they probably didn't wrap them because the wrap paper would cost money. And wrapping paper probably wasn't even in much, back in those days.
But you want an egg in your beer?
Well, sure, why not?
What's the sweetest thing you remember your dad ever doing for you? Or for anybody in the family?
Oh, the neatest thing my dad ever did for anybody in the family was he was the only one that had a job. I wasn't, I don't remember, but I was told. And he had gone to work over in Anniston, Alabama. That's where he got the job, even though everybody else was there. And Madeline was fixing to go to high school, and she had no shoes, and my dad bought her shoes so she had shoes to go to school with.
Now, when was this? How old was it at that time?
I don't know.
Sure.
But she was going to high school, so whatever.
What, Angel?
Call that instant gratification. It's totally different. Milk chocolate and fresh roasted peanuts. Gets them every time. Especially the peanut part. You know the chocolate. Peanut chocolate.